Hello, good morning, and welcome to the boardroom. In this video, we will try to discuss something about brand positioning. So, आप लोगों ने बहुत सारे ऐसे jargon सुने होंगे, positioning, brand positioning, product positioning, market niche, etc. Uh, or Blue Ocean Strategy. Obviously, it's a very famous book, and it's a very famous concept of finding your own blue ocean, right? And let's try to understand how this actually plays out in the market by looking at these two particular brands and specifically this particular product, right? So as you can see on your screen, that this is Ayuvya and Plix, and they are both selling this deep sleep tablets. And why I have picked this particular product is because uh, I had certain, I would say, certain issues sleeping, getting a good sleep at night. Sometimes the mind just keeps wandering here and there. So I just tried this, and I have to say these are pretty good, and these are not your typical notorious sleeping pills. Exactly, these are very sort of organic sleeping tablets, like these little minty tablets with or they come in different flavors, as you can see, right? So and what you actually get is basically, I was just trying to check what are the ingredients that they use, and I did not even realize that on multiple occasion, on two three different occasions, I have bought the same product from two different brands, Plix and Ayuvya. They both have same ingredients. In fact, they both have the same manufacturer, right? And it's somewhere in Pune, I guess. And it's one company that produces this product for both of these brands, and one sells it for almost 400 rupees, and the other one sells it for around 350 rupees. These prices vary, you know, a little bit, but this is more or less what the pricing is. So I just, it makes you wonder, even अगर आप एक कंज्यूमर के पर्सपेक्टिव से देखेंगे, यू हैव टू थिंक कि एक ही प्रोडक्ट, सेम इंग्रेडिएंट्स, सिमिलर पैकेजिंग, and quantity is same, everything is same, why two different pricing, right? And as a growth strategist, I dug deep into these brands and what they have been doing, what is their history, what's the revenue, etc. And I thought I must share this with as many people as I can to help you guys understand how brand, your brand image, your brand positioning, your market, your positioning in the market actually plays out in numbers. And we will try to understand this in this particular presentation. So let me take you to the beginning of this slideshow. So this is something that I call a founder's loop, right? So what happens is basically, what a founder's loop basically is that, you see, every organization, it runs on systems and SOPs, whether they are manual or automated, digital systems, mechanical systems if you're into manufacturing, right? So what in corporate jargons, this is known as growth loops, right? And this is ideally what you want your systems and SOPs to become. It should become a loop that helps you grow over time and actually adds up, to your overall revenue or your valuation, etc. What actually ends up happening in a lot of cases, right, in specifically MSMEs, startups, smaller bootstrapped companies that people, for example, there are a lot of people who have been working in an industry, right? And they see that there's some market gap that I can cover. They obviously they've had some learning. अगर आप किसी भी एक इंडस्ट्री में आप काम कर रहे हो, be it any position in the company, whatever your KRAs are, right? You tend to understand a little bit more about that particular industry, about that particular business, than other people, than other outsiders, right? So what ends up happening, बहुत सारे लोग, they see a gap, they see a market for a product, and they know how to get it done. They understand the unit economics, and what happens is they get, they get a brand made, or they just hire an agency कि इसकी थोड़ी branding कर दो, promotion कर दो, right? You must have heard some of these very generic approaches towards brand. In a lot of cases, I still feel surprised in how many cases a lot of founders just take a catchy name for a brand identity, right? And it obviously blows up in people's faces, because this loop that you are essentially trying to create when you're in a startup stage, right? So this is someone who's known as the father of startups, is someone called Steve Blank, right? And he's been a professor in Stanford. He's mentored multiple big startups. And in this particular interview, what he said is, I'll just tell you the crux of it, that the fundamental difference between a startup and any organization is that a startup is kind of like a lab, where a very few handful of people, they are trying to work towards work on an experiment to see what works, and they know how to make or unmake or break things very quickly, right? And then just quickly move on to the next thing, and they do it enough iterations need to be there for them to actually come up with the perfect product market fit. I mean, not perfect exactly, but the best possible product market fit, right? And this is, I also believe that this is also what makes organizations stand out of the entire startup ecosystem. That's how a startup becomes a full-fledged firm, and that this is what separates business owners from entrepreneurs, right? So what you are essentially trying to build is, alongside the PMF, the product market fit, is also the systems, your SOPs, your daily habits of not just your own individual habits, but how the business functions, right? Now, what ends up happening quite a lot, and in my own experience, I have seen this. I've read so many case studies about these things, like how every business or a startup essentially starts is basically, you get an idea and you have some skills, as I said, कि आप किसी भी industry में you have been working, and you get some learning, you find the market, you know how the unit economics work and how the product can be made, how I can outsource the production, right? And then you start looking out for whatever resources you need. You start planning your capex, your whatever real estate you need, resources, etc. And then you get some funds, you take out a loan, or you use your own savings or whatever, and then you start you're in you're in operation, right? You're operational as a business. You have your own infrastructure, digital infra, physical assets, raw materials, tools, etc., anything, right? And now you are officially in business. Congratulations. But then a lot of uh, reality starts to hit you, right? This is where your lack of planning, lack of connect and trust, right? Because this is one of those chicken and egg problems, right? कि business आपका नया है, so आपको trust create करना है, right? And most of us do not have large VC funding, right? So we cannot just go out there and ask celebrities to do some marketing for us. So starting में trust और confidence build करना, connect build करना, it's as important as it is, उतना ही ज़्यादा मुश्किल हो जाता है, because there's already a horde of brands bombarding consumers all the time, and the best minds of every company, they work on this. और बहुत सारी कई चीज़ें हैं जो आपको समझ आती है कि आपके प्रोडक्ट में कुछ ऐसी चीज़ है जो जिसको आपने बिल्ड करने में बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम लगा दिया, और वो अब इतनी डिमांड में है भी नहीं, स्पेशली टेक्नोलॉजी market में, IT sector, it's so dynamic that any innovation, any new innovation, especially with the AI boom, right? Innovations start to get obsolete within months, not even years, right? Exceptions aside. So what happens is that because of uh, a lot of costs that you had to incur. And of course there's something called switching costs for consumers, where consumer is already buying a certain product from a brand, and उनको वो एक trust उस brand ने build किया हुआ है. There's some customer loyalty over there as well, and the switching of that uh, that behavior, that consumer behavior from that brand to your brand, there's a certain cost to it, right? Because they are essentially taking a risk. They have to be early adopters, or your positioning and your messaging has to be absolutely on point, of course with the pricing and everything, right? So what ends up happening in my experience, that a lot of these founders are not able to understand what is going wrong, why aren't we able to sell as much or on a pricing that we had to, that we not just had to, and we wanted to, but we had to sort of match the projections that we had in mind when we started this. We will break even in 1 year, 1.5 year, 2 years, whatever. And now, because of that lack of clear understanding, there's a lack of clear messaging. You do not understand, you do not get much feedback from the markets as well, because you did not most of the founders do not plan about feedback mechanisms at all, which is a grave mistake. And you pay for it at the end, right? So what happens is, because you have to adapt anyhow, most of the founders, what they do, they start putting in a lot of money into advertising and marketing, be it giving it to influencers, barter deals with influencers, or just meta ads, Google ads, and they end up burning so much money that their entire confidence in marketing itself just goes out the window, right? And a lot of people that have come to me, and multiple stories that I have, that I might discuss on this channel as well in future, that they have already burned so much money on Google ads, specifically Google ads, because there's the science behind Google ads is completely different. You need to understand the intent, the search intent. You need to understand what keywords will work and how to really optimize. There's a whole science behind it, right? So what ends up happening is, a lot of businesses go out of, a lot of people go out of business, or they just get stuck in the phase that they are able to achieve, right? Some people get stuck in under 1 cr, some people get stuck in 10 cr, right? If you get to 10 cr without much of a planning, that means you are in a very good market and the potential is very high. But unfortunately for most people, this ends very early, very quickly, right? So what this negative loop actually ends up becoming is, because you lacked the early stage planning, the lack of strategic positioning, right? What is positioning, I will just mention it in a minute. But because the lack of it, lack of the positioning in your market, what ends up happening is, there's no trust, there's no connect, there's no brand building, there's no investment in brand building from your end, right? So no positioning, there's no brand building, there's no trust, no connect. What ends up happening is burning in acquiring new customers. The cost of acquiring customers goes really high. The return on ad spend, the return on investments start to diminish almost to zero, and sometimes they go negative. And then you start to lose money. Then the revenue actually starts to come down. In quite a lot of cases, people, as I just said, people actually go out of business because of these things. And of course, there are so many other, unforeseen circumstances, that we just can't do anything about it, right? Sometimes the markets just do not respond very well, or some issues with your production unit, your machinery. Some machine breaks down, and you can't find engineers. Very tactical, very specific problems that just keep on adding to your already going negative loop. So what ends up happening is little to no profits, and you lose capital. Now, these are just some statistics, and what ends up happening is you end up becoming one of these statistics. 90% of Indian startups fail within the first 5 years, etc., etc. So scaling and making a viable, scalable business in India, it's not an easy thing at all, right? Looking at the demographics and the spending habits of people, you really need to know where you need to anchor to really hold your position and then climb steadily and scale properly. So you really, at this point, you must be thinking what is positioning and what would be your business positioning. If you haven't, chances are that you haven't really thought about it that much, right? So what do you actually need to break this negative loop? You need to create positioning, but you also need clarity, you need data, you need positioning, right? Clarity is something that you gain out of data and positioning. Essentially, this is sort of an outcome, of the former. But data is something, even if you're starting out, there's a lot of market data. You need to do a lot of market research. Yeah, asking chat gpt for about markets and consumers spending power, etc., is not the only research that you need to do. You actually need to get out into the market, talk to your potential customers, clients, whoever you can find, connect to people, on LinkedIn. And that's how you actually gather intelligence, or human intelligence, as we call it, right? And then there's, if you are able to sort of crack, or identify the cracks in the market while you're gathering that data, then you can only, and only then you can figure out what your positioning needs to be. And this is something, this is a state of strategic nirvana that I like to call it, right? Because if you are able to get these three things, you will be growing effortlessly. It will almost feel, that's why people, a lot of people who are actually able to do it, they get that, what do we call that syndrome, imposter syndrome, right? Because it feels so easy, right? And I have also seen that with a lot of my clients as well. And there are so many conversations that I've had regarding that. That's another problem, by the way, for a lot of people. People are not very well prepared to actually handle themselves in that high performance, high scale environment, right? So that's something, that's a very good problem to solve as well, and hopefully we'll talk about it one day. So, firstly, you need to do a sort of a mini SWOT analysis of your own self. Try to figure out, write it down if you can, or type it in a Google Doc or a MS Doc, wherever you can. Think about what are your strengths and your current capacity, what all things you can do, and what all things you do the best, right? What are the things that might be hindering your growth? Whatever you can figure out, it may be the pricing, or it can be anything that you think currently is not letting you grow the way you want. Then, what are the market opportunities that you can pursue in the next 1 to 5 years? This is at least, to the very least, you should be able to think in 1 year or so, right? In a strategic manner, right? If I do this in 6 months, if I'm able to get this much revenue, I should be able to get this much in the next 6 months, and in the next 6 months, at least in in 1 year tenure, you should be able to think in that strategic manner, right? And what are the market opportunities that must be coming up? In maybe I can do a certain campaign, or a certain or launch a certain or a product line in the next festive season, right? Anything, right? So, and the next thing is, who is your competition, right? If you are able to look at your close competitors and what they are actually doing, not just with their products, but with their brand as well. What are the things that they are talking about? What does their content tell you about that brand, and even about the founder of that brand? Because a lot of people, they lead with their own personal brands as well, or they lead with certain problems that might be very close to the founder, and that's why they started the business in the first place. So if you are able to sort of get really deep into the competition, that will also really help you. And of course, the marketing tactics, what channels they are using. You can use a lot of tools for free as well. SEMrush, if you even go for the free thing, you will be able to get a lot of information from there. Now, these are the other important questions, very important questions that you need to ask: that who is your target audience? What are, who are you solving it for? What are the problems? So first question needs to be, what are the problems that you are solving, and who are those people that actually have those problems and you're working for? You need to be able to define your personas, audience personas, very very with utmost clarity, right? What's their age, what's their gender, what's the from demography to psychography, what their interest areas are, what their behavior is like. Are they early adopters, are they tech enthusiasts, etc. And just think about, why would someone buy from you? Again, talking about the switching costs, right? They need to have a very strong reason to actually buy things from you, right? The trust needs to be there, the pricing needs to be right, the messaging really needs to connect, and of course the product needs to just be at the level where it starts selling itself, right? Then the next thing is, how would you provide your solutions? Now this, what this means is, what are the channels, what are the distribution channels, what are the advertising and promotional channels that you are willing to explore, right? Given the capacity that you have via the mini SWOT analysis that we just talked about, that capacity also includes your capex. How much money do you actually have to spend? And that depends on you. How much money you have, that's how you prioritize your channels, and how you can what kind of results you can actually expect from those particular channels, right? And then obviously timing is very important. This is where a lot of people just lose the entire game. They do everything right, a lot of green ticks in the list, but the timing is just not right. It may be weekly, a weekly thing, or a monthly thing, or like in India, in the Indian market, we have this festive season that starts from somewhere around monsoon season, August, the month of August. And that's, if you are able to really time that particular market, or and the festive season, a lot of people have made a very good chunk of revenue, right? So these are the things, these are the very important questions that you really need to think about, and you can take a screenshot of it, and just think about it in your own time. Now, a lot of talk around positioning in this video, right? What is actually positioning? So this is something called valuable competitive positioning. This, in simple terms, is basically your position in this entire market, right? In the entire TAM, total addressable market. What is the chunk, or the portion of that market that you would like to address, and that you feel is underserved, or can be they need, or they want, there's a demand for more options, right? So this particular positioning is built by these three things. Number one being capabilities that I just talked about. What are your strengths? What are the things that you are able to do, and able to do the best? And how much, of course, how much money you have, that also counts. Then what are the market opportunities that you can explore in the next 1 year, the next 5 years, or whatever you can bring yourself to think about in those strategic terms. And what are your values? This value portion for a lot of people. It's just another page on your website, your brand values or your mission vision pages, things like that. But values actually also decide your messaging and how people actually perceive your brand. And I will just show you in this, in the next slides, how this actually, all of this plays out in numbers in real time. So how it actually works. This is a case study of Plix versus Ayuvya, right? So in this 4 by 4 comparative brand map, you can see the premium and the costly side has Capiva and Fasten Up and Well-being. They are both they're all a bit on the premium side in terms of pricing, and you can see it in their messaging as well. I haven't I won't be going into it right now in this video. But even within these brands, there's a another further bifurcation between Capiva and Fasten Up and Well-being, where Capiva is more positioned as an Ayurvedic natural brand, and Fasten Up is more modern and innovative, and so is Well-being. Right now, the ingredients and all of that might still be the same, or some ingredients might be here and there. They're all plant based, and they are all organic and Ayurvedic, etc. But the positioning, what I'm talking about, the messaging that they bring out, the brand image, the identity that they want to sort of project, right, is this. And Ayurveda also, along with Kapiva, falls on the Ayurvedic natural side, but it is more cost friendly. It is more pocket friendly. It is more for the, they try to project their image as the brand of Gen Z who wants Ayurvedic yet scientifically proven and cost friendly, pocket friendly solutions to specific problems like PCOD and weight gainers, right? So Ayurveda, that's how basically Ayurveda started. They found that there's a very huge gap in the weight gaining market for because most of the weight gainers are synthetic, and there's a very big demand in India, in Indian Gen Z, where people were demanding Ayurvedic products for weight gaining, and that's how they basically started Ayurveda. And on the other hand, Plex is more modern and innovative, also cost friendly, right? They still try to keep the pricing a bit higher than Ayurveda in almost every category that they overlap in, but they are pretty much the same, similar pricing, if not the same. But Plix portrays themselves as more innovative, as more modern, as more mainstream, right? And you must have seen Hardik Pandya and Shehnaz Gill in their advertisements. And whereas Ayurveda does not have any, famous mainstream faces promoting for them. So there's one thing, one angle to think about in this. Now, valuable competitive positioning. So we'll just brush up through it. So opportunities that Ayurveda saw is the big Ayush market in India, 43 billion US dollars in 2025. It's a big market, and as I just told you, the gaps that they found, they just started attacking it, and they attacked it bootstrapped without any funding still to this date, and they were able to do really really well. Their values is Ayurvedic heritage with authenticity. Interesting thing is Ayurveda is not even a word. It just simply suggests Ayurveda. That I think there's a genius in brand making. I always find nomenclature, the science of nomenclature, being very very underrated. Right? It shouldn't just be catchy, but the essence of the brand should be in the name. Right? They are solving modern problems with Ayurvedic solutions, but with a modern scientific overlay to it. So they also talk about a lot of scientific researches, and they claim that all of their products are scientifically proven and inspired by Ayurveda. Right? They have taken this middle path, sweet spot of being very reasonable, not cheap, but also not very premium, and just in right in the middle. It's a very good place for any DTC brand to be in, right? And transparency is again a very big thing for them: ingredient sourcing, third party lab testing, certifications, etc. Right? So and their content is also built around them, around these things, around this particular, their values and the solutions that they are providing. And capabilities, they themselves have a very strong R&D formulation team, and they also have certifications such as FDA, halal, and isha, and a very strong, clear communication in their social media strategy, and very informative. And they use micro influencers, fitness influencers, and other health, influencers, to talk about specific problems. And that's how they get reach. That's how they get their engaging content. That's how they inform people, and that's how they eventually sell their products via storytelling, and it's very engaging. And on the other hand, Plix is sort of exploring the plant-based supplements market. Also, a very good market, projected to grow to reach up to 42 billion US dollars by 2030. Now, their values is plant-based, clean, wellness, sort of inspired by the uh, Western angle of Ayurveda is plant-based and organic. And it's funny how similar these two things are, but yet how our minds perceive them very differently. When I say plant-based and organic, and when I say Ayurveda, of course, they are not the same thing, but they overlap a lot if you get into the ingredients and the details of it. Their personality and their branding, as I mentioned earlier, very pop and mainstream, using famous mainstream faces, and not a lot of content around informing people, education, none of that. Just engaging, advertising with famous faces. That's pretty much it. And they're also very flexible in pricing, and they have subscription based models, lifestyle based bundles, etc., just to make it more feasible for people. And of course, people do this to increase their average order value. And they they engage in a bit of influencer activity, but not as much as Ayurveda. So their brand is making health and nutraceuticals and plant based wellness fun and more flavorful, right? Their capability is also, they have a strong R&D in house, and great flavors, very good sensory experience. The entire brand focuses on that, be it branding, brand identity, colors, etc., and obviously the product and the experience of that product. They have their own branding and community. uh, some influencers, again, not a lot of influencers, but the brand culture that they sort of try to connect with. And they also have venture capital backed money, right? This also adds up to a lot of capabilities. You can't just go out there and hire Shehnaaz Gill and ask her to do an ad. You need a lot of money for that, and you will see how this actually plays out in a minute. Of course, content speaks volumes. If you go to their, even to their Instagram pages, you will see the stark difference in content, and what these two brands are talking about, and how they project themselves as brands is completely different. Coming back to this particular product, that's how the positioning of these two brands, right? Plix, affordable but yet mainstream, and have that VC money to back them. And that's what also gives them the obligation, I would say, to sort of position their product, the pricing of their product a little bit higher. And it's not that कि ये लोग अपनी pricing को, even Plix could be selling it for 300 something rupees, 350, or maybe even lesser, since they have the VC money. But they also have a lot of obligation towards the investors, right? And because up until 2025, I think third quarter, they were not even profitable, right? And they've been, because they have this brand image of being the mainstream trustworthy brand, having famous faces, that also allows them to ask for a bit more. If you want clicks, if you want quality, you need to pay a bit more than the other products, whereas Ayurveda is much more reasonable and practical in approach. And of course, the Ayurvedic thing, that niche is, if you are someone who only trusts Ayurveda, right, and who only wants to get Ayurveda, none of that synthetic nonsense, you will look at Ayurveda and go, this is much better. And iska pricing bhi kam hai, right? So that come pricing, the lesser pricing actually becomes more of an incentive, more of a motivation for consumer to actually buy. Now, looking at the larger picture, Ayuvya started as a bootstrapped business, and they have been they started out in 2021, and in 2022-23 they got profitable, and since then they have been maintaining an EBITDA of around 15% without any backing, without any funds or VC funds or investments, etc. Right? So, number one thing, their valuation as of 2025 is somewhere around 450 to 550 crores with a very decent EBITDA, if not excellent, decent EBITDA of 15%, 100% bootstrap. The founders keep 100% of their equity. Plix, on the other hand, the valuation is sort of on the higher side. Of course, 600 to 650 cr is a good valuation. EBITDA margin is 4 to 6%, and they just got profitable in 2025 itself. Right? Currently, we are in 2026, so they just got profitable last year, and then net losses have been huge. They have been backed by Marico VC, which also backs well-being nutrition, and I think they back well-being nutrition as well, but they definitely back Fast Enough. And they, because they own Fast Enough and Fast Enough was going very well, Plix started cannibalizing Fast Enough's market a lot with the lower pricing, affordable pricing, and Marico bought them as well with 60% majority stakes being held away from the founders. If you ask me personally, I would much rather be in Plix. Pardon me. I would much rather be in Ayuvya's, position rather than Plix, because firstly, if I'm starting out a business, I really want to have my own business. I want to work on my own vision on my own terms, not because I owe it to someone else who has given me money, right? And if I can do it bootstrapped without any obligations and do it really well with this EBITDA margin, with being it profitable, and take it to 500 cr, even 100 cr, as I mentioned earlier, people are not even able to get up to 10 cr, right? In most cases. And so this makes it a very, very good position to be in. And while Plix founder, he or she, they might be happy. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be very happy holding, not holding the majority stakes in my own brand, in my own vision, right? And just barely becoming sort of profitable to show something for it, right? So this is how values, capabilities, opportunities make up for a positioning, a market positioning, where it decides the destiny of your revenue and how things are going to play out for you in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? And so it is all about creating a positive loop, breaking the negative loop that unfortunately you might have, most founders have already been stuck with, right? So positioning, that is why it's so much more important that most people actually think in the first place. So this is it for this particular video from my end. If you enjoyed watching this video and you found it valuable, please do share this, subscribe to the channel, follow me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and if you want to reach out to me, talk about your business, and I can do a strategic audit for you to understand where you are being held back by your own processes and things in your business that you do not even know are happening, right? So you can reach out to me via email, you can reach out to me via LinkedIn, and you can find the information right around this video somewhere in the description. And do follow me and subscribe to the channel for more such valuable content. Thank you so much if you have watched this so far. Really, really thank you. Thank you a lot. Take care.